Kendra Lawson knew the city better than most cab drivers. Every back alley behind a downtown restaurant, every shortcut under the L line, every lobby that forced her to wait outside in the rain. She'd seen it all. And on this night, Chicago was drenched. The kind of rain that soaked your socks no matter how tightly you tied your boots. It was her last delivery of a 14-hour shift. Her shoulders ached from the weight of the insulated pack, her hoodie stuck to her arms, and her fingers were numb from the cold clutch of wind off the lake. But she kept walking, because Kendra Lawson didn't stop. Not when her sister's asthma meds cost more than her weekly paycheck. Not when the UX boot camp she was grinding toward seemed forever out of reach. Not when people looked at her like she didn't belong in half the building she entered. She delivered, rain or shine, because each step was one closer to a different life. She checked the address again. Lakefront 1, luxury condominiums wrapped in steel, glass, and silent judgment. It was the kind of building that didn't allow walk-ins, let alone delivery couriers drenched from the CTA. The doorman didn't even bother hiding his skepticism. His eyes skimmed her badge like it might be fake. "You sure this is the right place?" he asked, adjusting the earpiece in his collar like she'd just walked in off the street to start trouble. Kendra forced a smile, even as water dripped from her curls. "Yep, Unit 19B. One last drop for the night." He squinted at his monitor. "That unit hasn't had a delivery request all day." She lifted the damp cardboard box slightly. "Maybe someone ordered late?" He didn't answer, just buzzed her in like it pained him. Inside, the air was warm, crisp with lavender and marble polish. Kendra's soaked hoodie began to steam. She wiped her shoes on the mat and walked briskly to the elevator, the package snug under her arm. Books, according to the dispatch note. Heavy, definitely. Probably hardcover. She rode up in silence, watching the numbers tick past wood-paneled walls and brass buttons. 19B. She rang the bell. There was a pause, then a click. The door opened. The man who stood before her wasn't what she expected. Mid-40s, maybe? Tall, pale, with soft silver hair, and the kind of posture that came from money and meticulous yoga. His eyes were sharp but tired, and he wore a navy sweater with sleeves pushed to his elbows, the kind of casual that only the rich ever truly mastered. He blinked at her. "I didn't order anything," he said, voice low and controlled. Kendra started to apologize, lifting her wrist to double-check the label, when something shifted in his face. His eyes had dropped to the return address on the side of the box, a single name printed in neat cursive. Margaret Everett. Something like a ghost moved across his expression. "My mother," he said under his breath. Kendra hesitated. "You're Simon Everett?" "Yes," he said slowly, "but she hasn't sent me anything in years." He looked at her again. Longer this time. "Would you mind coming in for a moment, just to clarify something?" Kendra stepped back instinctively. "Sorry, I can't. Company policy. We're not allowed to step over thresholds. Liability stuff. And people like to report us when we do." Simon glanced past her, as if just realizing the building he owned had become a fortress of rules. "I bought this building," he said calmly. "I think I can make an exception." Then he did something unexpected. He handed her a towel. Kendra didn't move. He waited. "I'll stay by the door," she finally said, stepping in, cautiously. The apartment smelled like cedarwood and books. Soft jazz played from speakers she couldn't see. The lighting was warm, not showy. There was a grand piano tucked into the corner, its lid half raised, like it was mid-thought. He motioned to a low table and took the box from her gently, setting it down. "You can wait here. Just a minute." Kendra stood stiffly by the doorway, towel gripped in her hands like a shield. Simon sliced open the package with a silver letter opener. Inside were carefully wrapped books, a cloth-bound journal, and a sealed envelope with his name in cursive. He didn't touch it. He just stared at it for a long moment. "She always said she'd write me when she ran out of other ways to speak," he murmured. Kendra stayed silent. It wasn't her place. She was a delivery girl, not a therapist, not a bridge between estranged billionaires and their ghosts. But she couldn't help it. Her eyes scanned the room. It was tasteful, quiet, but lonely. And then she saw it, above the fireplace, framed and lit from above. A painting, vibrant brushstrokes. A woman sitting on the edge of a fountain, reading a book, her face half turned as if caught mid-thought. Her skin was brown, her eyes intent. But what struck Kendra was the energy, the life. There was a small brass plate below it. "For K.E." Simon noticed her gaze. "My mother was a portraitist," he said. "She liked to paint people she never met, imagined strangers. She said the people we long for say more about us than the ones we have." Kendra blinked. "K.E." He gave a small smile. "She used to sign her fantasy portraits with initials, like a letter to the version of herself she never became." Kendra exhaled, unsure why the moment felt so personal. "You said you're a courier?" he asked, shifting the box gently aside. "Yeah, for now." He raised an eyebrow. "I'm studying UX design," she added, "trying to build interfaces for people with disabilities, inclusive design, accessible apps, stuff people forget about until it's their parent who can't see or their kid who can't use a mouse." Simon didn't blink. "I just want to build something that helps people feel seen." There was a pause. "You ever pitch that?" he asked. Kendra laughed once. "You think anyone's going to back a delivery girl with night school loans and an outdated laptop?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into the box and pulled out the envelope. He opened it slowly. Inside was a letter. Her handwriting unmistakable. "If you're reading this, then we never spoke. I failed at the one thing I promised myself I'd do before I left this world, to reconcile. But if you are reading this, then maybe you let someone in. Maybe that person reminded you who you were, before the numbers, before the walls. Find them, Simon, and thank them, because they did what I could not." Simon's hand trembled. He didn't speak for a long time. "I should go," Kendra said gently, not wanting to intrude further. "No," he said suddenly. "You've done more in the last 10 minutes than my assistant has in 3 years." She froze. "I mean it," he said. "You showed up. You didn't flinch. You saw." She gave a soft laugh. "I rang the wrong bell." He met her eyes. Maybe it was the right one. She stepped outside, the towel still in her hand, unsure of what had just happened. Just a strange night, she told herself. A misdelivery. Nothing more. The rain had stopped, but something inside her hadn't. The next morning, Kendra didn't expect anything different. She woke up at 6 in her shared apartment in Bronzeville, stretched her aching legs, and went through her usual ritual. Tea instead of coffee. Cheaper. Quick breath exercises for anxiety. A scroll through job boards she couldn't yet apply to. And another glance at the UX boot camp's payment plan. Still out of reach. She wasn't thinking about Simon Everett. Not really. Not about the warm apartment, the portrait with her initials, or the letter from a mother who spoke louder in absence than most did in presence. Until her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She debated letting it ring, but something in her gut, that quiet hum she'd learned to trust in a city that rarely gave second chances, told her to answer. "Miss Lawson?" the voice said, polished, professional. "This is she. I'm calling on behalf of Everett Capital. Mr. Everett would like to schedule a meeting with you. He mentioned a potential collaboration." Kendra froze mid-step. "What kind of collaboration?" "I believe he'll explain in person. Would you be available today, 3 p.m., at our downtown office?" Her instinct screamed scam or setup or some test she didn't sign up for, but her voice said yes, because some doors don't knock twice. She spent the next 3 hours second-guessing her entire wardrobe, finally settling on the least wrinkled blouse she had and a pair of clean black sneakers. She printed her portfolio, a flimsy collection of wireframes, app mock-ups, and one UX case study for a hospital intake form, and stuffed it into a folder so worn it looked like it had been chewed by ambition. The Everett Capitol building downtown was glass and marble and silence. Reception gave her a badge without asking questions. The elevator ride up was quiet, except for the sound of her heart. On the 27th floor, 2 sharply dressed assistants greeted her. "Mr. Everett is in the conference room," one said. "He's waiting for you." She walked through a set of double doors, expecting suits. A panel, a cold table of skeptical venture capitalists ready to shred her with finance lingo. But there was only Simon, sitting at the head of a long walnut table, sleeves rolled up again, laptop open beside a cup of untouched coffee. He stood when she entered. "Miss Lawson," he said with a small smile. "Thank you for coming." Kendra cleared her throat. "You, mentioned something about a collaboration?" "I did," he said. "Please, have a seat." She did, cautiously. He didn't waste time. "I invest in early-stage ideas," he said. "But more than that, I invest in people. Not products, not pitch decks. People who challenge my assumptions." He paused. "You challenged me." Kendra blinked. "By ringing the wrong bell?" He smiled faintly. "By speaking truth without flinching. By reminding me that there are still voices outside these walls that haven't been handed microphones." He slid a slim folder across the table. "In here is a proposal. My team and I drafted a support framework for an early-stage startup. You'd lead product direction, you'd shape the vision, I'd handle funding, mentorship, and team building. You bring the soul." Kendra stared at the folder like it might burn her fingers. "This is—" She trailed off. "I'm just a delivery girl." "No," he said. "You're a founder who hasn't been handed the chance to be seen yet." She didn't open the folder. Instead, she looked at him, directly. "Why me?" He didn't hesitate. "My mother's letter said, 'Find someone who reminds you who you were before the billions.'" He took a breath. "You walked into my apartment like a storm I didn't see coming. Real, drenched, tired. But you stood there anyway. And you said, I want to build accessibility. You weren't selling a dream. You were living the reason for it. She exhaled, struggling to balance the rush of adrenaline with the pull of disbelief. What's the catch? She asked. There isn't one, he said. Only a condition. Make it real. Don't let it be another diversity story used for headlines. Make it matter. Make it work. Build something that can't be ignored. She nodded slowly, still holding the folder. Then she set it down. I'll do it, she said, on one condition. He raised an eyebrow. I don't want to build flashy apps, she said. I want to build dignity. Ease of use for people who were never considered part of the design. Seniors, disabled folks, kids without tech-savvy parents, people like my sister who can't breathe without medical access that costs more than her rent. Simon's smile widened just slightly. Then we're aligned, he said. That afternoon, the paperwork was signed. By evening, her inbox was flooded with welcome emails, team intros, and the name of her new startup-to-be. She chose it herself. Ease Now. Simple, direct, soft in a world built sharp. Weeks passed, then months, and Kendra, no longer soaking wet, no longer rushing between blocks of indifference, sat in boardrooms, led product meetings, and built prototypes that read with screen readers, adapted to motor delays, translated forms into plain English. She built a team from people who had once been overlooked: women, BIPOC developers, immigrants, mothers returning to the workforce. And when a short video featuring Kendra and Simon explaining the mission of Ease Now hit social media, it did what her portfolio never could. It made the world look twice, not at her struggle, but at her clarity, her why. And in that moment, Kendra Lawson, once just a girl with a soaked hoodie and a dream she couldn't afford, realized something. She hadn't rung the wrong bell that night. She'd just knocked on her future. 6 months later, the building looked the same. Lakefront one still shimmered in the sunlight, like it thought it was too good for the rest of Chicago. Polished marble lobby, cold lighting, staff in uniforms, 2 shades lighter than indifferent. It was designed for people who never carried boxes, never waited for permission to enter. And yet, today, Kendra Lawson walked through the front doors like she owned the floor she was headed to. No badge, no security clearance, just a briefcase, a quiet confidence, and a reason. Back again? Said the same security guard who'd once questioned whether she belonged. Kendra turned, smiling. Different reason this time. The guard squinted, confused. Then his eyes fell on the silver company card clipped to her coat. Is Now Technologies, co-founder, product director. She watched him process it. I used to deliver here, she said softly. Now I deliver other things. She didn't wait for a reply, just headed toward the elevators with her head high. Upstairs, the penthouse conference space buzzed with activity. It was the first press day for Ease Now's public beta launch. Not just journalists, but community organizers, accessibility advocates, disability tech reviewers, and families who had signed up early because they believed in what this thing could be. Kendra didn't wear heels. She wore clean sneakers because the kind of founder she wanted to be didn't need to tower. She just needed to walk the whole distance with her team beside her. Her co-leads were there. Devika, an Indian-American coder who once fixed public transit interfaces for fun. Tomas, a Mexican-American designer who spoke 3 languages, none of them corporate, and Ayana, a single mother who built the entire user onboarding flow while nursing a newborn. This was the team Kendra had dreamed of. Not just brilliant, but hungry, grounded, unapologetically different from the norm. And Simon, he wasn't at the head of the table. He sat to the side intentionally, letting Kendra take the lead. As promised, he wore that same navy sweater, but today there was no grief in his eyes, no distance, just quiet pride. "You ready?" he asked. "No," she said honestly, "but I'm doing it anyway." That was enough. When the cameras started rolling, Kendra stood beneath the company logo, not a sleek geometric brand, but a soft, open icon. Two outstretched hands, cradling a simplified smartphone interface. "I used to be a courier," she began. "I used to walk in the rain carrying things that weren't mine for people who wouldn't open the door all the way." Some people laughed nervously. She didn't. "I thought I was building strength, but what I was really building was empathy, muscle memory for being invisible." She looked across the room, found Simon watching her like she was reciting a piece of his own mother's letter. "And now," Kendra continued, "I've built something with a team who knows what it feels like to be ignored by design. People who know that accessibility isn't charity, it's basic respect." Behind her, the screen flickered to life. A clean, intuitive interface for navigating medical forms, an auto reader for job applications, a translation tool for parents whose English wasn't fluent, one button to convert PDFs into audio. Real stuff, for real people, not polished tech fantasy, but lived reality. The audience didn't cheer, not yet, but their silence wasn't disinterest. It was attention, full, quiet attention, the kind that happens when people recognize themselves in something. After the Q&A, after the cameras shut off and the laptops were closed, Kendra stepped aside for a moment of air. She looked out over the lake. Chicago glistened, stubborn and beautiful, like it always had. She didn't hear Simon come up behind her until he spoke. "You look like someone who finally rang the right bell." She laughed. "Still can't believe that was your door." He nodded. "I can. Margaret would have opened it if I didn't." Kendra turned to him. "Do you ever think she planned it that way? Sending that package?" "She didn't believe in accidents," he said. "She believed in invitations." Kendra nodded slowly. "Well, I accepted." They stood in silence a moment longer. Then Simon added, "You're not just building a company. You're reminding people that systems can be rewritten." She looked at him. "So can people." That afternoon, she returned to the lobby, not to make a speech, not for photos, just for her. She walked back outside, paused on the sidewalk where her shoes had once filled with rainwater. The sky was blue now. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a card, and handed it to the same doorman who once narrowed his eyes at her. He read it. "Kendra Lawson, Ease Now Technologies, co-founder." "Tell the next courier who comes through to keep their head up," she said. "Excuse me?" he asked. "Tell them maybe this building has better things waiting on the top floor than they think." She smiled, then walked away. Not a delivery girl anymore, not an exception, just a woman who built her way in and left the door open behind her.